The story is not hard to follow, although at times can feel a bit slow and boring. You play as two families, the Walker family and the Hoyt family. Now, the game doesn't start with any narration or backstory, but you gather through a few cutscenes that the Walker family, consisting of Michelle, Zoe, and Vince, are moving across the country. You do get some backstory a little bit later as to why they're doing that, but to summarize, Vince had an accident at work that wasn't his fault, but the big company blamed it for him and essentially gave him some hush money to move across the country and start his new life. However, after stopping at a rest stop, you and your family hit the road, and here's where you're introduced to the Grandpa Jim. With some dialogue, you find out that he's new to the family dynamic, and later you learn that he left Vince's life at a very young age, but upon getting the big C and not wanting to die alone, he's made an effort to reconnect with his once abandoned son. So after you guys are on the road for a while, seemingly out of nowhere, a car comes along and almost runs you off the road, sends you guys spinning, losing control, and so after the car comes to a stop, Vince gets out and notices that it's leaking oil. Luckily for you, this is a video game, so you're right outside of a town. Unluckily for you, this is also a video game, and the mechanic is out of town for a few days, so you have to stay at a local hotel and wait for the mechanic to come back. And this is where the first part of the story just stops and it shifts to the Hoyt family. So then the game introduced you to the Hoyt family. The three brothers consisting of Tyler, Dale, and Jay, and I'm just a few weeks past last time I played this game, but I'm pretty sure you actually only make choices for Jay, where with the Walker family, you make multiple choices with multiple different members. For the Hoyts, I think you only make decisions as Jay. Anyway, back to the story. You and your two brothers are deciding to rob the sheriff of the town's house because he has a safe with a lot of money in it, though. And although after successfully finding and opening the safe, the sheriff comes home and you have to make a run for it. So you and your brothers get back in your truck and speed off the road. On the radio, you hear that the sheriff has called for backup, so you need a place to lay low for a while. Kind of like a hotel on the outskirts of town. If only we knew another family that had a car broken down that also had to stay at that hotel.
Dispatch, this is C1. I need all available cars in the area west 2 Rock. Searching for a blue pickup truck.
So after the Hoyt family makes it to the hotel, they take it over and hold everyone hostage, including the Walker family. And from this point on, the game really sticks to the same formula. You play as one family, do a mission, and then play as the other. Sometimes it takes place in the present, sometimes it takes place in the past. However, it doesn't really change from this point of storytelling where you do one mission with one family and another with the other. Now, if this all seems kind of vague to you, then good. That's the point. I will be sharing some opinions and thoughts about this game. However, the biggest thing I want you to take away from this game is that you should play it. A game like this has really one major downside, and if you haven't been able to tell by now, it's not live action. It's almost like you're playing alongside a storyboard, what I would imagine video games look like before they are made into live action. However, providing you give it the time to set in and let this style really feel its way out on you, it has a unique and fun charm to it. In fact, I would say that for this story alone, it's almost better for it to be designed like this, because I feel like you connect with the dialogue and you're much more focused on the decision makings than with a game like Detroit Become Human that has so much going on in the background. Sometimes it's overwhelming and you're not really paying attention to the dialogue or the decisions that you make. And on that point, a game like Detroit Become Human would not be nearly as good if it was made into this style. Just like this game wouldn't be good if it was made in a live action. Now, if for some wild reason this video is what pushes you over the edge to actually try this game, I want to give you one piece of advice before playing it. This game is nothing like Detroit Become Human or The Quarry, so don't think of it like that at all. It's a completely unique and different game. In fact, I would go so far as to say it might have invented its own genre. Now, for this review, I don't really want to spoil anything for you, but I do have to tiptoe around spoilers just a little bit when I'm talking about the things I like and dislike. Starting with the likes of this game, I just touched on it a little bit, but the style and the art design of this game is really cool and it really grows on you. So without repeating myself, the main point I wanted to make is just don't let the way the game looks be the reason you don't play this game. Trust me, it works for this type of storytelling.
Paul, how's things?
Slow as usual.
Yeah, like my daddy always said. If you don't slow down, you don't see the wall before you hit it. Where's Joyce and her kid?
Now, a major part of why this storytelling works, and specifically the art design, is because the voice acting in this game is so good. I would have to sit down and really think about it for a long time if I've ever heard better voice acting. Voice actors from a 6-year-old girl to a gambling addict drunk, they give everything to their roles in this game. With the exception of one cutscene, the voice acting is so believable and real, and it goes perfectly with this storytelling.
As soon as I walk out that door, I'm gonna radio for backup. Now laugh like I told you a joke. Good one, right?
Another thing I really liked about this game is the game-changing decisions. So if you're unfamiliar with this style of game, you make a bunch of decisions for a bunch of characters. However, there are major decisions you make along the way that will drastically impact the story. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, and sometimes it won't do anything. But the decision making of the big game-changing moments in this game are so powerful and so pressure building. Like, you are having to think about so many things in these moments, and it's really, really cool. Now, this wouldn't be a fair and or honest review if I didn't talk about the negative things, and there are a few, probably closer to quite a bit of negative things about this, but we'll touch on a couple and I'll let you figure out the rest when you play. Number one, I know I just talked about how I liked the game-changing decisions in this game, and I do. However, I feel like the developers made a decision that is catered to newer players for this style of game, because there's no time limit on these decisions. With every other decision in the game, you have a timer where you have to pick quickly. However, with the crossroads game-changing decisions, you can literally sit on the screen forever. I feel like that's almost a decision only made for new players, because if you speak to anyone who's played this style of game, I feel like they want the intensity and the pressure to be as high paced throughout the entire game as possible. Another thing I didn't care for is there's a couple levels in this game where you play as characters that have already been established as other people in the game. What I mean by that is typically you play a game and you get to make a decision as a character right away when they're introduced. There are other characters that seemingly are NPCs or other characters throughout the game, and then all of a sudden you have a level where you make a decision for them. I didn't really like that. I've never seen that in any other video game, and I really I didn't like it. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and if there was anything that I would say is a spoiler throughout this entire video, it would be in this part. So if you want to skip it, go ahead and skip about 30 seconds. There is one character I really didn't care for throughout the entire gameplay, and that is the Hoyt's father. He's played up to be this physically abusive, drunk, avid gambler, and he's just not a good guy. The game does a really good introduction to him, and you know right away what kind of person this is. However, throughout the story, it does try to come across like he wants to change, but he just can't. And there's a moment in the game where he does some sort of, we'll call it self-sacrifice, to give his family some life insurance money. You should know what I mean by that. And you have the option to let him go through with it or to not. And I decided to not. And after this, I really thought it was going to be a, turning the leaf and starting a new journey with him. However, the character just continues being the way he is. The story plot just dies out. Nothing else happens. And I really couldn't care for it because it really seemed like it just wanted you to feel sorry for the main characters or to just dislike this character. Either way, perhaps I misread it. I just didn't care for the character.
My pappy used to take off his wristwatch. It was because it was time for a beating I wouldn't forget. Hold this.
And that's pretty much it for As Dusk Falls, at least for this video. But lastly, we must rate this video game and give my final thoughts, so we will do so now. As Dusk Falls is a fun, enjoyable, and surprisingly entertaining game. I recommend it to anybody looking for a fun game. Unfortunately, I do believe with the art design and the style of the game, many people, including myself at the start, will not be interested in playing this game, let alone paying for the $29.99 price that it is currently on Steam. You can buy it at discounted prices on bootleg websites, and in fact, it is also on Xbox Game Pass, which quite often offers free week and day passes. So look for those if you're interested in playing this game. Lastly, to rate this game on the price tag of $29.99, all things considered, I give As Dusk Falls a 7 out of 10, making it an enjoyable, fun game, Scary Harry 22 certified, and would recommend it to anyone.